Good morning. And I just realized that I do not have my microphone on. So let me know if you can hear me. I hope you can hear me. Let me get this correct. I can't believe I forgot to put on my microphone. So if you're here, let me know you're here by putting a hashtag in there. If you have been to my lives before, just let me know that you've been here before and tell me legacy. So watch, you're going to see me get dressed right here on screen because I want to make sure that I am live. So let me know that you can hear me. Okay, good. I am set up. Great. I can't believe I forgot that. But hey, it's live and things like that happen. So anyway, I am Michelle O'Neill, your purposeful living coach and boundary strategist. And we are here today on the meeting place. And I want to tell you right off the bat, stop feeling guilty. Okay, maybe not totally stop because guilt can be a good thing or a bad thing. There's actually helpful guilt and unhelpful guilt. And we'll talk about that later. So just remind me later in the subject. But I am so glad you're here. Again, I said if you've been here before and watched one of my lives before, go ahead and give me a hashtag legacy. If you're new here, give me a hashtag newbie and let me know your name and where you're from. And so today we're going to talk about stop feeling guilty, or at least unhealthy guilty or unhelpful guilty, right? But before we go all in there, let me share with you there is an actual distinction between guilt and shame. So I want to make sure what you're feeling or what you're dealing with, that you understand that there is a difference. And we want to make sure that you're feeling guilt and not shame. Now, both they come from social conflicts, things about societal things and things that are going on in society. And it's about doing something you consider as wrong. So, hey, I got a newbie here. So you know what? I don't have my glasses on, but I am so glad you're here. I think I know who it is, but thank you for showing up for the live. And so we're talking about guilt today. And like I said, guilt and shame both come from social conflict, doing something that you consider as wrong or deviating from something that is considered norm. And it's also your guilt or shame can be public or private. In other words, no one has to know that you're dealing with it or that you feel it, but it's still there. Or it could be totally out there in front and everybody saw you take that spill or whatever it is. But it can be public or private, and it deals with, both of them deal with common feelings such as embarrassment, humiliation, regret, remorse, disgust, or my favorite, self-consciousness. And why I say it's my favorite. So let me tell you about this. I was in Texas visiting my cousin, right? And we were in the front of the restaurant, when they're sitting outside, because, Texas is hot. And we were all sitting outside and enjoying our dinner. And I had to go to the restroom. And so the restroom in this restaurant, you had to walk straight all the way back to the restroom in the back. And so I walked back there. I took care of business and I came out and I walked all the way back to where my family was. Well, come to find out, walking through that whole restaurant, my dress was up inside of my slip. Now, it was a good thing I had a slip because they would have got an eyeful. But the whole time I walked from the back from that bathroom all the way through that restaurant, not one person said, excuse me, ma'am, your dress is inside your slip and you need to pull it down. Now, that's self-consciousness. Do you know for the rest of the day, I was so self-conscious. And that was pure shame. That was not guilt. So I want you to know the difference. I was so embarrassed and self-conscious. But I want to talk about guilt, the difference between guilt and shame. I want to get into it a little bit more. Now, guilt is about your action, the action or the behavior. 100%. It's an internal response to something that you've done or something that you haven't done. You know, a lot of times we feel guilty because we said or did something and we know we shouldn't have, or because there was something that we felt we should have done and we didn't do. And we're going to talk about those later too, the shoulds and the musts. Or that you did something bad against your personal code of ethics, like cheating, stealing, being cruel to someone, hurting someone. And those are against your personal code of ethics. And it's a behavior or an action. Remember that. Guilt is based around the behavior or the action. And you are able to see your mistakes. These are things that you acknowledge and take full responsibility for. An example of guilt is when you've been drinking and you drive a car and you accidentally hit someone. That is healthy, helpful guilt. You should, at that point, feel guilty because your actions, your behavior of driving while drunk cause a harm to someone else. So that is the right kind of guilt because it shows that you have a conscience, and having a conscience is a good thing. And then when you feel guilty, a lot of times we seek forgiveness. And that seeking forgiveness or knowing that we're guilty, we change that behavior. And so feeling guilty in a lot of ways can be helpful. But I want you to understand the difference between unhelpful and helpful guilt. And we're going to talk about that a little later. But let's talk about shame before I move into that. Now, shame is all about your character, who you believe you are. What you believe about yourself is not what you did, but who you are. It's feeling things like, I'm a bad person. I could never be smart. I'm not good enough. It's that negative self-talk that we tell ourselves and the things that we say to ourselves and who we perceive ourselves as being. It's those character flaws that we tell ourselves that we see when we look into the mirror. It's the things that we see pasted right there in front of us. And sometimes though, that shame is a survival tactic against the bad things that has harmed us in the past. And the sad thing is we can't separate ourselves from that act. It's not what we did, but who we are. We didn't do good on that in that game because we're not a good player. We're just no good. No, you didn't do good because you didn't learn the tactics that you need to learn. You didn't practice. You didn't come prepared. It had nothing to do with who you are, but your actions and your behavior and what you did. And that's the difference between shame and guilt. It's the gap between who you are and who you want to be. And so a perfect example is this weekend. Oh my gosh, talk about feeling guilty. I had a serious bout of grandma guilt, right? So my grandson had this game this weekend. And I knew that if it was on Saturday, there was no way I could make it because of previous engagements. But then I found out his game was on Friday. Now, there's some challenges with that Friday, even though I could still make it. And it was the thing about, it was nighttime driving, which I don't like to do a lot of because of eye issues when that light hits me in my eye. But also it was damp and rainy all day Friday. And it was like, was it wise for me to be out there in that rain? But you know, to be a good grandma, I had to be there. I had to support my baby. And then I didn't have my car and I had to go pick my car up because it was being worked on. And so I knew that if my car was ready at the right time, I could still make it because his game was an hour and a half away. And so the whole time I'm sitting there, I felt double guilt. Guilt because as a grandma, I wanted to be there, but part of me was like, I knew all these issues and I wanted an excuse not to be there. I'm going to be totally transparent. I wanted that excuse, but the whole time knowing that I was looking for an excuse and that I couldn't possibly be there, I was feeling so much guilt. What kind of grandma would not be there for her grandson? And so it ate away with me, even though I had a good excuse at the end because I waited for my car 2 hours and I knew there was no way that I could make it to his game on time. There was a part of me that still felt guilty and said, well, I could still be there for half of the game. But was that smart? Was that the right kind of guilt? And so what I'm talking about is the difference between helpful and unhelpful guilt. Those acts is the thing is helpful guilt are actions that break right or wrong. Is it right or wrong? Am I choosing between right and wrong? But unhelpful is when there are actions that break an unrealistic high standard. And in that case, I had an unrealistic high standard of what I should do as a grandma. And so what I did to, remember we talked about when we have guilt, we can ask forgiveness and we can change that behavior. And so for me, my grandson reached out to me Saturday and I was able to have a text conversation with him because, you know, he don't get on the phone, he texts. I was able to have that conversation with him and he said, Grandma, it was my best game. And thank you for your prayers. Because he knew that I always pray for him, whether I could be there or not. And it was just having that conversation and seeing that growth in our relationship that made me sit okay with that. That I can't always be there for him. That's so unrealistic. And what I mean is at his games or stuff, but I can in spirit always be there for him and with him. And so I was able to release that guilt. And so I hope that helps you understand the difference between helpful guilt and unhelpful guilt. Woo, it's hard to talk today. But you know, when I get excited, it is always hard to talk, right? But I always also want to talk about our shoulds and the musts. And if this is resonating with you, let me know. Give me hearts or say, hey, I feel you in the comments below, because I want to know that this is resonating with you, that you understand you're picking up what I'm putting down, right? So shoulds. Now, shoulds and musts they're rigid beliefs. It's a response. And as moms and friends and as a and I think for some reason, I'm okay. Okay, I hope I'm back in here. So for some reason, I jumped off, but I hope everything is okay. But anyway, we're talking about the responsibility for the well-being of others. And that's just natural because we're natural nurturers. But the thing is, we have to start asking ourselves, because I want to give you specific things you can do to start making sure that your beliefs are not rigid beliefs, and not irrational beliefs, but they're rational beliefs. And so with that said, hey, how you doing? With that said, thank you. Let me go ahead and show this comment. Thank you so much. I'm glad to see you here. Okay, so I'm getting sidetracked, so let me get off here. Okay, but the thing is, we have to be able to ask ourselves different questions and put ourselves under scrutiny. We have to challenge those beliefs. And so you ask yourself, can I live with that decision? like I was talking about with my grandson, I had to live with the decision I made. And don't say, well, sometimes that guilt isn't for us to make a decision. Yes, it is. Remember, I talked about taking responsibility for your actions. When we take responsibility and that guilt is built on our actions or our behavior, when you take an action and when you have a certain behavior, it's a choice. And that choice is a decision that you make. So can you live with your decision? Is the first question you ask yourself before you go ahead and implement that decision. Can I live with the decision that I made? And then ask yourself, where did it come from? Where did this feeling, this guilt come from? Is it real? Is it unrealistic guilt that someone told me that I should feel, or something that someone told me about myself, or how I should act? That all moms should be maternal, that all moms should be soccer moms, that all wives should always do this? Is it a should or a must that society has put on you? So ask yourself, where did it come from? And is it something that I believe or someone else's belief system? And can I live with that? And then ask yourself, well, why is it so important? Why am I letting it tear me up inside? Why am I fighting with this? And then again, let's go back to the helpful or unhelpful. Is it something that's telling me right or wrong? Am I making a choice on whether something is right or wrong? Or am I making a choice on some highfalutin, because something unrealistic, high standard that I've taken on that isn't necessarily so? And so ask yourself, are you denying the responsibility? And are you putting up false fronts just to hide your guilt? And one of the biggest guilts that we deal with is with as women, is if we're a mom, we deal with what I call mom guilt. Remember, I talked about that responsibility for the well-being of others? Well, as a mom, we really feel responsible because we brought this beautiful creature, human being, into the world. And not only do we feel mom guilt after we have them, but we actually feel mom guilt while we're carrying them. I remember once when I was pregnant with my daughter and was told that during the last trimester, it's good for you to have a drink of wine maybe every day or once a week. I can't remember how often they said it was, but I had some wine. And for some reason, my baby didn't move for a day. I thought I had killed her, but I hadn't. And it had nothing to do, but that guilt of how the actions we take can affect others. Women, and studies show that women are especially good at taking credit for everything that's wrong in their kids' life. I didn't teach them enough. I didn't give them enough love. I wasn't there enough for them. Whatever it is. Social pressures are on us to raise our kids right. And it seems to all fall on mothers much more than the fathers, because that's the way society has it. If that kid is bad, very rarely do they say it's the dad's fault. Or their mom must not have raised them right. She didn't discipline them right, whatever it is. And so we as mom have to really look at that guilt. Is it helpful or is it unhelpful? We feel a lot of times that we hold on to that guilt because we feel that if we're the cause, it's a power thing. If we're the cause, then somewhere in there we can be the solution. Well, you know what? You can't control everything. And you don't have the power like that. You are no superwoman. You are no Wonder Woman. That sometimes our children and others in their lives have to be responsible for their own actions. So stop feeling guilty if the guilt isn't yours to hold. And you know, me as always, I can't leave you today without you having things that you can do to move forward. So I have questions for you to ask yourself. The next time you feel guilty about a particular situation, ask yourself, why? Why am I feeling this way? Is this mine to own? Or is it someone else's? In fact, what brought this on? Why am I feeling guilty about this? Is it because of something I did earlier or before? Is this a guilt that I even should have? And ask yourself, where did I learn this? Where did I learn to feel guilty or shame about this? Is it because of one of those shoulds or musts that I learned growing up? That I learned on my job? That if I don't do this, I should do this to be a good employee. And if I don't get in early and leave late because I should or I must, I'm not a good employee. If I don't, whatever it is, there are so many shoulds and musts in our life. So where did you learn that from? And then ask yourself, who gave you that message? This is so important because the who, is there someone whose opinion you value? Is that someone who you allow to speak in your life? Is that someone who even knows what they're talking about? Or who knows you? Or who knows anything about the situation? Is that someone who you should be listening to? Ask yourself these 4 questions. Why am I feeling this way? What brought it on? Where did I learn this something to feel guilty or shame about? And who gave me this message that I'm listening to? The thing is, we want to separate our actions from our identity. It's what you did. This is something I just want to share with you with my grandkids and with my daughter. One of the first things I taught them, and I know this is going to sound bad or horrible, is that I don't always have to like you, but I always will love you. And why am I saying this? Because there are times that I didn't like their behavior or what they did, but it never negated me loving them as a mother or a grandmother. And I would let them know, okay, I don't like what you did. I don't like what you said or how you're acting. But I love you. I love you. And so understand that you don't have to always like someone, but you can love them. And then remember that mistakes don't define who you are as a person. It just defines what you did. And the thing is, mistakes can be forgiven, corrected, and you can move forward. You can build upon that mistake to be better. And then finally, practice self-compassion. I would encourage you that when you're feeling guilty about something, take 15 minutes and practice self-kindness and self-compassion. Journal or write the things that you like about yourself. Own honestly your action and the things that you can do to change it. Make restitution for it and turn away from it. I so love being here with you today. And I want you to know that understanding our motivations are so important to understanding ourselves. Our motivation is what drives and catapults everything we do. And so I invite you to discover your primary life motivation. What drives you? Your life motivation driver at masteringyourmonday.life/quiz. Because I have designed a quiz for you so that you know your primary life motivation, your primary driver. I am so thrilled that you were here with me today. I want you to know that I see you, I appreciate you, and you are amazing. I will make sure to comment and reach out to you below in the comments. Until next time, take care. Thank you for being here, and stop feeling guilty. Take care. Bye bye.